the Portland Trailblazers, a team that we talked about in our last episode a month ago, who were dangling between the 1 and the 2 seed, have now fallen all the way down to the 13th seed. They are sitting at a record of 21-25 right now, 4-12 in their last 16. I mean, the question I ask you, fellas, is where did it go wrong?
Like this team, they lack multiple things as it is now. For one, they don't have squad depth. They don't have a lot of depth on this team. There's none after like the seventh or eighth man on this team. They lack rim protection, especially on this team. Yusuf Nurk, like their paint defense. I was watching the game versus them and the Cavs, and they got absolutely smoked in the paint. And it happens nightly for this team.
Thomas
Their
Bryant.
yeah, their perimeter defense. Matter of fact, yeah, the Lakers game. Like Thomas Bryant was abusing these guys in the paint. Like it's like their paint defense is terrible. Their perimeter defense has been lacking sorely. Especially when you start at Dame and Simon's backcourt, it's very tough to guard teams opposing guards backcourts, and like this team suffers from multiple issues. They don't have a great defense. Their offense is kind of stifled. They started off hot, especially shooting wise, and that's kind of regressed. And it's really just been Dame, just carrying the load for this team, and it makes me think like, at what point do the Blazers finally just decide like like enough is enough? Like, let's just blow it up with Dame. It's not saying anything has been wrong with Dame at all. I don't think Dame's the issue in Portland, but at what point do they decide, let's maximize his value? He's an all NBA point guard, and let's get him out of here because the squad depth is lacking. There's not enough wings on this team because of injuries. And of course, the rim protection is not great. The paint is very sweet. Any team can get in there. It's just there's multiple issues plaguing this team as it is now. And like my opinion is, like I think they should blow it up with Dame. I don't think there's a lot that can be saved with this team as it stands now. They do have a lot of talent in terms of the guys like Simons and Sharp and Jeremy Grant, but like I want and Dame. But once you get out of that, the use of Nurkic, I think he's very very overrated. I don't think he's a very good center for this team. They don't have a great bench at all. Gary Payne, Gary Payne Jr., he's injured, and Josh Hart, he's kind of regressed in terms of his shooting. There's a lot of issues for this team, so that's where I'm at with it.
I agree with you. Like everybody from small forward down is below 6'5". Like you have Josh Hart starting as your small forward. Gary Payne Jr. just came back and he's your backup small forward.
Yeah,
And then you have your guards at Simons, Lillard, Shaden Sharp. Those guys are not defensive guards either. And then you go to I can't even name the backup center. I can't even name you the backup power forward.
I think is what Drew Eubanks or something.
And
Yeah,
I cannot name the guys on the their depth, their bench. I feel like they probably have one of the worst benches in the NBA in terms of and I don't like any person or anybody but Shaden Sharp on that bench. Other than that, it's a bunch of NPCs and a bunch of trash players playing for them. And to me, it's just the size. You got Simons, you got Lillard, you got Josh Hart. Those three guys in the backcourt playing defense against your 1 to 3.
they're
That's it.
last in points per game off the bench. By the way,
See, so that plays a factor, and I do agree with you. I feel like it's time just to blow it up with Dame. I feel like Dame's, he's kind of holding on with the loyal to the team type thing every time, saying, "Oh, I want to stay win a championship with this team." I feel like he's a little too much deep into that, and I feel like he got to know that hey, this type of roster, I'm not winning the championship. I feel like in the past he has better rosters, past couple of years with McCollum and other guys, but to me, this roster, I don't know where it went wrong. They were hooping early on in the season, and then this last 16 to 18 games has been horrible. So I feel like they got figured out. There's a lot of holes in their game. And to let guys like Thomas Bryant come in and just bully your bigs, Jeremy Grant, Nurk, like that is it's crazy, A guy that we traded for nothing for scraps, and he gets 31 to 14 on your head. So it's tough for them. Uh, I do believe, it's time for them to blow it up. But I feel like it's Dame the one that he doesn't want to go. And I feel like the team, they're just like, whatever. We'll sell tickets with Dame, get money off him, and that's the case.
I think the reason why the Blazers have struggled the way they have is defensively. Defensively, they've been very poor. They used to be a team that can, switch in the beginning of the season where they had Justice Winslow, Jeremy Grant, Josh Hart. They had guys that can play defense and protect Dame and Anthony Simons, guys that don't necessarily play great defense. And then, they could potentially they were hiding Yusuf Nurkic's defensive liability in the beginning of the year. But then, yeah, like Big H said, Abdi said, you guys said, uh, at the end of the day, these guys are starting to get exposed now. The pain is sweet, and of course, it doesn't help when, when guys like Dame and Simons hit the bench, there's not a lot of production coming off of the bench to help that. So you're forcing guys like Dame and Simons to play heavy minutes every night. So that can be very, very tiring because when you look at the box score and you look at Damian Lillard's game log for the last 10, 12 games, this guy's been on a scoring outburst. He's had a 50-point game, 40-point game here and there. But a lot of those wins, a lot of those games don't amount to wins. I think he dropped 50 points and they lost. So it's like that shouldn't be happening. Your team should be respectable enough to, to win a game when your star players dropping 50 points. Everybody should be just doing their job and, playing defense and providing the scoring whenever Dame's not. But unfortunately, that's just not the case. And until they find their way defensively, I know Justice Winslow's been injured for a little while, but they just did recently get back Gary Payne. But until they find their way defensively, these guys are going to struggle mightily, and these guys are going to be on the outside looking in. In the Western Conference, that's it might be close, but one day you can be the 6th seed, and the next day you can be the 10th seed. So it's not even though it's close at the same time, and still there's a lot of teams that are competing for those spots, and the room for error is really, really slim. And then to speak about Damian Lillard in this whole situation of him not running from the grind, I feel like that whole conversation is going to come to an end this offseason, whether or not these guys make the play-in tournament or even if they make the playoffs and they get bounced in the first round. I think Damian Lillard's time in Portland is up this coming offseason. They traded away a guy like CJ McCollum, to see if it was just if that fit it wasn't just that if that fit wasn't it. And to see him and Simons in the backcourt and see how much damage they can do together. And yeah, they're a great scoring punch, 1-2 punch. Those guys can score the basketball with ease, but at the same time, you're just gonna need something. You're gonna need a lot more than just scoring. You're gonna need some defense and some facilitating. And Damian Lillard, he doesn't have much time left. He knows that. He's getting up there in age. He's been in the league quite some time, and this little running from the grind gimmick he got going on, it's got to come to a close at some point. He can be he knows he can be very, very useful on any championship contending team. Teams would die for Damian Lillard right now. They know that, and he knows that himself. Teams like the Bucks, teams like the Lakers that there's a lot of teams that need a point guard, and Damian Lillard can fill that role.
You don't got the assets, big bro. Stop.
No, but I'm saying, like, for example, if the Lakers had the assets to go get a guy like Damian Lillard, yeah, but Damian Lillard's so into this. I'm not running from the grind. It's like, yeah, bro. At some point, the Portland Trailblazers as a franchise are gonna have a sit down with you, and they're gonna tell you, yo, it was nice having you here, and we respect you for what you've done for this franchise. But I think it's best if we part ways. Something very, very similar to what the Spurs did with DeJounte Murray out of respect, but at a way higher level because Dame has done a lot more for the franchise. So until the Portland Trailblazers find their identity on the defensive end, these guys are going to struggle. And then for Damian Lillard, I think his time in Portland will be up at the end of this season.